Sometimes the trajectory of life can change in an instant, or a series of events in rapid succession throws us on a completely different path. Our guest today is Ray Martin. He will tell us how his world turned upside down in just 3 months, prompting a profound re-evaluation of everything he believed in about life and work. What began as a short backpacking trip then unfolded into a transformative 14-year journey across the globe. In 2022, he published his book, Life Without a Tie, a memoir chronicling this unexpected odyssey. While he doesn't claim to hold all the answers to life's big questions, his experiences led him to discover and live by six core happiness principles. Today, as an entrepreneur, coach, mentor, facilitator, speaker, writer, and mindfulness teacher, Ray is a passionate advocate for awakening human consciousness and spreading joy and purpose in the world. Welcome to our show, Ray.
Wow, I hope I can live up to that introduction. That's amazing. Thank you.
Well, Ray, can you take us back to the start of this incredible journey when those
Yeah.
33 months changed everything in your life?
Yeah, I can. And it's just still etched in my mind as if it was yesterday. I'm sure if you had a similar experience, you'd say the same. But when I was growing up at school, the only wisdom I was given about how to be happy in life was you just get a good job, get a wife, get a house, build this kind of identikit. Someone called the phrase recently an off-the-shelf life story. And I love that phrase. I never thought of it until recently. And so I was living this off-the-shelf life story in pursuit of happiness, as everyone was. And it was sort of working, but I had a lot of questions and doubts about it at quite a deep level. But I inevitably got married, and my wife was actually also my business partner because we had this dream of setting up a company together, which we did. And for 7 or 8 years, the company became very successful, and I was given the Business Leader of the Year award by the Daily Telegraph in England in 2002. And my kind of star was in rising, and it was all brilliant. But deep down on the inside, I never felt like it was my life, the life I should be living. It was, as Bronnie Ware says in her book, The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying, the number one regret that people have when they die is I wished I'd lived my life true to myself and not the life that others expected of me. And I really felt that I was living the life others expected of me, but I could never put my finger on it or resolve it, or it was like an itch I couldn't scratch. And then
Yeah.
one day, when everything looked great on the surface, my wife came back from a meeting and said, I'm leaving you and I'm leaving the company. It was really sudden. It came with no announcement. And at the same time that happened, my father got very ill and he died shortly afterwards. So within a 3 or 4 month period, the life I knew was completely imploding. And I was out of my house, out of my company, my marriage had gone, my dad had gone. I thought I really didn't know who I was at that point, and I was incredibly broken, Reno, just broken, desperately unhappy, distressed, anxious, scared, and stayed like that for a while, for at least a year, until someone said to me, one way you can get yourself out of this funk for a little while, maybe, would be to go and help someone else and go 100% into service for them. Otherwise, you're just going to be wallowing around in your own sorrow for quite a while. And
Yeah.
I thought that was a great suggestion. So I actually heard a dear friend of mine who was living in Australia had breast cancer. So I contacted her and said, how about I come out for a month to look after you and Matt and the family and just take care of you? She said, that would be great, because she was about to start chemo. So I went out there and did my act of service for her. It was lovely, and it did take my mind off my own problems, but nothing much had shifted. I was still in that soup. And I had a week in Cairns in Australia with another friend before I came home. And this is where the story gets insane. Like, I don't know if you want me to continue, but I'll tell you what happened.
Yeah, please continue.
My friend said, me and my mum are going to see a play at the theatre. Would you like to come? So I said, okay. So I go to this theatre, we're watching the play. In the interval, I'm reading the programme, and it's got notes about the actors and an audition coming up for the next play at this theatre. It's a British play called Out of Order about an English member of Parliament and a farce that goes on around his hotel room. And I looked to my friends and turned to them and said, just for a joke, look, I should be in that play. I've got an English accent. I could play that character. I mean, I'm not an actor, Ray, at all. I've got no experience. I was just saying it to fill the interval, really. But they turned to me and said, do you know what, Ray? We know the director of the play. You know, if you go to the audition and the casting, we actually know him. I said, don't be ridiculous. I'm not an actor. I'm not doing that. They said, well, why don't you just go for fun? Don't try and be in the play. Just go for fun. You're going 2 days later back to England. At least it'll be a good experience. So I said, actually, that's good. I'll do that. So I went to the audition. I threw myself into it because my brother's wife is an actress and I'd been dating an actress in London. So I knew about, and I'm not shy as a businessman because I'd spoken at conferences and things. And at the end of the audition, the director came to me and said, can I have a word? I said, oh, God. Are you really going to be around? You know, what's your situation? Do you live here? And I said, yeah, of course I live here. You know, why would I come if I didn't? I didn't tell him I was going back home. So a couple of days later, after I'd arrived in England, my friend Julie, who I went to see it with, they want you to be in the play, Ray. I said, what part? They said, the leading character. George picked 400 lines of script every night. He has to move dead bodies, kiss a couple of people, do all these antics. I thought, oh my God, could I do that? So I checked in with my sister-in-law, said, do you think I could do this? She said, I think you could probably learn how to do it. Yeah. And the only other thing that was stopping me from accepting it was that I'd committed to do work with 3 or 4 clients. I thought, how am I going to get a confirmation signal, is what I call it, from the universe to say this is a good decision? Because I felt that I was being called to do it. I really felt like literally I was being pulled from my insides to do this. Didn't know why. It didn't make any sense. There was no money in it or anything like that. And so I called each client and I told them this story exactly as I'm telling it to you now. So I've been auditioned for this play. It seems bonkers for me to accept it at this stage of my life, but I want to do it. The only thing is, I've promised you I'll do this work for you here. So if you want me to stay and do the work, I won't go. It has to be with your 100% blessing. And then if you give me that, I'll go. All 4 said, yeah, I'd go. Go. So I bought a ticket, went back to Australia, and I did that play for 3 months, and it was brilliant. It totally and utterly changed everything. And then when I was flying back to England to resume my life as a businessman, I noticed a lot of dread and heaviness in my body on the airplane. And I thought, what's that about? What's that about? And as I reflected on it, I thought, oh my God, Ray the businessman is a character like George in the play. I never, ever thought of it in those terms ever before. I thought, I am not Ray the businessman. I'm playing Ray the businessman, but it's not me unless I choose it to be me. And I can choose to rewrite the script, change the character, or kill the series off totally. Yeah. And I suddenly had a load of options that I didn't ever see before for all the years I'd been alive before.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's how it started.
Wow, that's an amazing story. And it's so profound because the universe speaks to us in such subtle ways. And in
Yeah.
your case, it was reading a program and something happened.
My attention kept drawing to the ad. I wanted to go to the next page, but I kept going back.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But this happens to so many people. You place your ladder against the wrong wall, and at some time in your life you realize, place the ladder against the wrong wall. This is not me. This is not the authentic me.
Yeah, it can feel like it because even when you're playing a character, if you fully become the character, you feel really competent in that role. It's not like it does feel strangely familiar, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's well, I always tell people, you don't have to face tragedy, loss,
No.
financial devastation to change the course of your life. You can learn to listen to those subtle whispers.
Yeah, I mean, following on from what you're saying, I mean, don't wait for the call to adventure, as Joseph Campbell calls it in The Hero's Journey. Maybe initially find a really trusted friend to talk to or someone you can do some reflecting with. Maybe start journaling what you're actually thinking and feeling and reflect on what the situation is. And another thing I would definitely recommend always is to say, if you had what you would consider to be the ideal life in terms of what it would look like, feel like, sound like, and you were to draw a picture of that, what's the gap between that picture and the life that you're actually in right now today? And how could you take even just one small step to start closing that gap? Because as long as you're moving in the right direction towards that picture, everything's going to work out absolutely fine.
Yeah, really great advice. But what is holding people back from taking that first decisive step?
I can't say for every person listening, but in general, from the people I've spoken to, generally it's fear of loss, fear of not being good enough is a very, very common fear. Whatever it
Yeah,
is you're thinking, I'd
yeah,
like to do.
yeah,
I'm not good enough. I'm not intelligent enough. I'm not wise enough. I'm not old enough. I'm not young enough. I'm not rich enough. I'm not wealthy enough. Whatever it is, there's loads
yeah,
of it. There's you can
yeah.
put
Oh,
any
yeah,
word in it.
yeah, yeah.
But
Uh,
that is something in there. It's generally in that domain.
yeah, yeah. And procrastination can
Yeah.
get very uncomfortable.
Yeah, and
Uh,
then there's the whole concept of taking ownership, which is one of my
mm,
six rules,
yeah.
because a lot of people sort of still operate as if the outside world is controlling their options.
Yes,
Because
let's go into those six
yeah,
principles that you developed and found
yeah,
as really good advice for
yeah.
people.
I've written about these in detail in the book, but I'll whiz through them. Number one is what I call building a strong foundation inside yourself. To me, the first principle of happiness, you have to be willing to commit to a way of life that has self awareness at the center of it. If you're not prepared to do any work on reflecting on yourself, reviewing what events are happening and how you're responding to them, asking questions of yourself, which is how can I improve how I'm living, how I'm, the quality of how can I keep improving that? What do I need to know about myself, my beliefs, my vision, my passions, my strengths? If you're not doing that investigation and exploration and reflection, you're going to really cut your chances down of being happy. So that's a way of life. It never stops. It's like if you want to be an athlete, you've got to commit to training as a way of life.
Mm, yeah.
You've got to, that's the
Yeah.
same.
Yeah. So that was number one, right?
That's number one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Number two is fully own everything that happens. The stance in life I've found that really works best for me. Events that come I don't like sometimes. I wish they hadn't happened. I get taken off a project and I'm going to lose the income or something.
Mm,
I've got to say, what have I done or not done that may have been a causal factor in this happening? I can make it look like it was someone else doing it to me, but there's something for me to learn that I didn't have a strong enough relationship, or I wasn't valuable enough, perhaps, or it wasn't exactly what they needed or wanted. What is it that I can do on my end to make sure that doesn't happen anymore? How can I change and adapt to these
yeah.
circumstances?
Yeah.
And
Okay.
that's taking full ownership. Like when my ex-wife decided she wanted to leave the marriage, I could have spent the next 20 years moaning and groaning about how she left me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I,
Taking
yeah,
ownership.
but I,
Great point.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I knew that she left
Yeah.
because there were certain things I did and didn't do as a husband
Mm,
that would have been a causal factor.
mm,
And I had
yeah.
to really dig deep and say, what were those? Because I don't want those to come into the next relationship I have. I don't want to do that same thing again. So
Yeah.
what do I need to, what's my learning? What's my
Mm,
change? What's my adapt? Number three is, um, this is what I learned through the Buddhist teachings that I had, which were extensive. Become your own observer, because like that epiphany I had on the airplane where I went, oh my gosh, Ray, the businessman, is a character.
mm,
That's me observing myself in the feeling of dread and asking curiously, what's going on with me? What's my thinking and what's my feeling and why is that? And I saw from a distance, if I was somebody else, a third person looking at me, that I was going back to play a character I didn't want to play, and it was causing a lot of discomfort for me.
mm,
So
yeah.
that's me observing myself
Mm,
rather than me. If I was me just in the thoughts, caught up in it, I'd just be ordering lots of drinks on the airplane and getting drunk because it was too uncomfortable to sit in.
yeah.
That's something I don't want to do. So
Sure. Yeah.
that becoming your own observer is creating the
Mm,
distance to see yourself and how you think and what your beliefs are and how you can adapt and change those.
yeah.
Number four, I think, is a rule that served me all my life, which is it's always a good intention to build powerful, purposeful, and sustainable relationships. You're going to have a great life if you're surrounded by people where you have those. And it's going to be much tougher if you don't have any powerful,
Mm,
purposeful, or sustainable relationships.
yeah.
So, how that plays out for me, Rayno, is that I've never had to apply for a job ever in my life. I've always had people coming to me saying, "How are you doing? Are you free? Do you want to get involved in this, Ray? We want you." Something like that. Because I know a lot of people
Yeah.
I've been kind to, and vice versa. And how it played out in what I do now, I'm a leadership coach, is that I went off traveling when I sold the company that was left after the divorce. One of the top people I had, a young woman in her 20s, I thought she's got a really bright future, but she had no job to go to. The company was going to not be trading. So I went to a rival company on her behalf, and I didn't need to do this. I just did it because it felt like I was doing the right thing by her. And she'd been very loyal to me, and I just wanted to be kind. And I went to a rival company and said, I've got this great person on my team. She knows that the company's going to be sold and there won't be a place for her, but I think you should hire her because she's going to be brilliant. You'd be crazy not. And they did. And
Wow.
she was super successful. For the next 7 or 8 years, she worked really hard with them, grew to the point where she then left and set up her own new business with one of the partners from that company. And when I got back in touch 13 years later, I was living in Poland at the time, and my girlfriend wanted to be a virtual PA. So I got back in touch with this lady, Claire, her name is, and said, "How are you doing? My girlfriend's looking for some help with this virtual PA. Do you need that?" She said, "No, I don't need that." But I said, "By the way, what are you doing?" She said, "Well, I'm launching this new company with this other lady, and it's going to do leadership development and coaching, etc." And as she described it, I kind of got this tingling feeling all over my body. I went, "Oh, wow, that sounds brilliant." I said, "Is there room for a coach in there? Because that's what I do."
Yeah.
And I love. She said, "Well, that's interesting, Ray, because for 6.5 years you were my boss, but I'm going to be your boss if you join the team. How would that be?" And I said, "That would be fine with me. I'd be no problems at all being in service to you and your mission." She said, "Okay, you're on, you're in." And I've been working with them ever since.
Wow. Yeah, so that was number four,
Yeah, number four.
relationships, and
Yeah.
then number five.
Number five is a rule around well-being. Proactively take care of your mental, physical, spiritual, emotional well-being. No one's going to do that for you. Don't wait till there's a crisis. You're not always in your optimal resourceful state. We all experience days when we feel our energy's low, when we don't take care of our health, when we overeat, don't sleep enough, don't do enough exercise, etc., etc. Mindfulness plays a huge part in my life now. That was something big that happened in that 14-year journey for
Yeah,
me, and I've had a mindfulness practice for the last 15 years, and it's really served me well in terms of my well-being.
yeah,
And then the last rule, number six, you have to be doing all of the first five because the number six won't work otherwise. But
mm,
assuming you are leading your own life according to those five rules, the number six rule, the one that makes the big difference, is find and empower others to live these five rules as well.
well, that's really great advice.
Yeah.
Uh, and you just mentioned earlier on you delved into Buddhism.
Yes.
What's your personal philosophy?
Oh, well, I had to answer this question for a recent accreditation, not as a professional coach. Um, Broadly speaking, I first of all believe that life is an inside out experience. It's not the outside in. When I was growing up as a kid, you were taught, it's outside getting things makes you happy, getting a job, getting a girlfriend, getting a car. So if you're unhappy, go and get something outside, and that fixes your happiness on the inside. But the lived truth for me of that is that lasts about 10 seconds. So that's not true, not according to my wisdom. The better way to be oriented is I can be happy no matter what circumstances I'm in because I've got air, food, a place to sleep. I've got all the basics I need to be totally happy in life. Everything else is a luxury. And as long as I remember that and I'm grateful for that, I can radiate happiness out and that will attract to me what I need.
Yeah. Yeah, that seems to be one of the big misconceptions about
Yes,
happiness,
it is.
external gratification, and our whole society seems to be focused on external gratification.
Yeah.
This create the nice world outside and it'll make you happy within. But look at our world. Depression is an epidemic. Loneliness
Ah,
is an epidemic.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So that would be one of the basic points. There's more to it. I don't know how much time we've got. It's a big
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah. Can you have can you give our listeners some advice maybe on starting their day with some simple habit?
Yeah, I mean, I start mine with a 15 to 20 minute sitting meditation, and sometimes outside in the garden in the sunshine when the weather's nice. It's a bit
Yeah.
variable in England, but
That's great. I do that.
yeah,
I do the same.
yeah,
My day is awful if I don't do my morning ritual.
yeah. That stillness is vital for me
Yeah.
because that's the voice of wisdom that I'm trying to connect with.
Mm.
It's a voice deep in my belly that filters up into my mind, but it's different to my rational mind and thinking, because thinking has a much more temporal feel to it. You know, when I'm sitting in meditation, I suddenly go, oh my God, the gas bill, I need to pay the gas bill. It's just something coming randomly and then it's gone. And
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
notice I'm going, oh, I'm, no, I'm meditating. I'm thinking about the gas bill, back to
Yeah.
the breathing.
Yeah, yeah.
But
I delved into Zen Buddhism, and I had great trouble sitting still for long times. And I did a week-long sesshin, and I really suffered with back pain and all sorts of
oh
things.
God,
But then a meditation teacher said to me, "It's okay to have those thoughts coming. It's
yeah,
normal. It's normal."
yeah, yeah, it is.
Yeah,
It is
yeah,
because they're like it's like standing in a train station where the high speed trains go through the station. They don't stop. So
yeah,
the train's coming through at high speed. Your choice is to just stand on the platform and observe the train pass through and leave it, or
yeah.
try to jump on the train and
Yeah, yeah,
But that's the
yeah,
same with our thinking.
yeah, yeah. Let's look at some of the global events unfolding at the moment. There
Sure.
is such a lot of negativity in the world out there, and I
Yes.
think most people, and I include myself,
Yeah.
have great difficulty extracting themselves from all that negativity out there.
It makes sense. I mean, I want to be empathetic. I feel the same. There's so much corruption in the political and financial systems that govern how things work in our world. There's so much corruption. It's hard not to be heartbroken because the consequences of that are that really innocent men, women, and children are just being blown up and killed every day unnecessarily. And we all know it's tragic. I mean, but there's money at stake. There's big profits in war and armaments and weapons and all of these things.
Yeah,
There's obviously a handful, maybe thousands of people are benefiting from those status quos remaining how they are.
yeah.
And we all know that, but there's
Mhm.
very little we can do about it. So, but we also have to somehow reach deeply into our wisdom and know that the human condition has got these interbeingness to it.
Yeah,
We're all capable of both the light and the dark. We have that mix inside us
yeah,
individually. And so
sure.
as a society, we're going to reflect that. Who knows where it's going to go? Who knows what society will be in 1,000 years from now? We don't know.
Yeah. Well, I firmly believe we're in a state of
Yeah,
evolution of consciousness,
we
and
are.
sometimes we go into regression before we take a step forward.
Yes.
It seems to me this is what's happening
Yeah.
because when I was a journalist, I mean, it was focusing on the bad news all the time.
Yeah.
And a lot of my colleagues had depression because of
Yeah.
that. But this gave me the reason to delve into philosophy, religion,
Yeah.
spirituality, and I think there's both all the time. There's the miracles
Yeah.
of life, the beauty of life, and then there's the shadow, the darkness. Um,
I love it. But also, I think, I don't know if everyone's ever said this to you, Reno, but, one or two journalists really helped me kind of wake up and really inspired me to get interested in some of these. Like John Pilger, for example, was an absolutely brilliant journalist when he was alive. And he just went and confronted all these issues, head on. And he never gave up. He never stopped until the day he died. He was brilliant.
yeah, you mentioned earlier a great book, Joseph Campbell's Hero's
Oh, yeah.
Journey.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, let's talk about that a bit.
Yeah.
Uh, what inspired you with Joseph Campbell's thoughts?
Well, I was trying to make sense of my own. journey. Why did my life suddenly implode, and what was this call to do the play? And and when I started understanding his view of storytelling and the archetypal lines in storytelling, I realized that's what he calls the call to adventure. When the protagonist is suddenly having to leave the known world, the known comfortable world, and go off into the unknown world and make discovery of some new insight or wisdom through some big experience that's going to transform his life or her life, and then
Yeah.
return to the old world with the new insight. And I never had this picture of that until I read his work.
Yeah.
And it enabled me to see, actually, I'm in a journey here that's divinely ordained in a way. It's beyond the day to day. Is this nice or not nice? Is it pleasant or unpleasant, as the Buddhists would say? I was seeing my own life through a much deeper lens of understanding through his work.
Yeah. The amazing thing is, if you look back at a life in reflection, if I look at my own life and those key points that led me into a different direction,
Yeah,
I feel kind of being led and guided uh,
it
by a
does feel
great
like that, doesn't it?
by a greater force.
Yeah, like this
Yeah,
huge invisible
yeah,
hand is
yeah,
behind your back. Yeah,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
how it's always felt to me. And even Steve Jobs was, often quoted as confirming that, because in his Stanford commencement speech, which is famous, he said you can only connect the dots looking backwards. When you reflect back on what's happened, and
yeah,
the meaning of that can only be connected from a retrospective point of view. Because while it's happening, you haven't. For me, while I'm in the middle of a transition, I've got no idea what I'm doing. It feels uncomfortable, awkward. It's
yeah.
like, oh, I don't. It doesn't make any sense sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I would never have thought I'd be doing what I'm doing today,
Yeah,
20 years ago. But there you go. And
yeah,
well, prior to our conversation, we talked about the Camino. We both walked the
yeah,
Camino, which was an amazing experience, I'm sure for you as well. Uh, I met so many fellow pilgrims on the Camino
yeah. Me too.
who were at this what I call flat on the ground moment
Yes,
that changed the course of their life,
yes,
and uh, more or less, demonstrating the miracle of life at the same time.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Me too. I mean, it was one of the great experiences that I documented in Life Without a Tie. I did it in 2014. It took me about 35 days to get from Saint Jean to Santiago. And I'd done it as a kind of as a warm up, for want of a better word, because I was then going to Plum Village Monastery in France with Thich Nhat Hanh for a 3 week retreat with him. And so I wanted to be in a meditative space inside myself in order to go into the monastery. And so for me, it was like this 10-week meditation. It was absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, yeah. This is what I certainly can say about myself and so many other people I know who've walked the Camino,
Yeah.
and also showing. I'm walking next week, by the way,
Oh, wow.
but lots of people are out there searching for meaning and purpose.
Yeah.
I think because um, so many people feel let down by institutions such as religion, uh,
Oh, for sure.
by feel let down by concepts and belief.
Yeah.
And this is what I possibly think is what is the new revolution, the revolution within.
Mm.
Uh, and you are part of that, uh, awakening people to the revolution within.
Yeah. Well, it does certainly appeals to my ego. I'm a bit of a rebel in my ego state.
Yeah.
So it's good to know.
So Ray, one last great message for our listeners.
Well, that's a good question. What would I say? For me, the joy of life is when every person finds their own true path and walks it. That makes for a great world. It makes for a great life for that person. It's just the best that I think one can choose. And so my encouragement to anyone listening is, it might be difficult, it might be challenging, there might be some consequences you might not like initially, but if you can find your own true path and walk it, you're going to have a really extraordinary life.
Thank you so much for being our guest today, Ray, and for your great message for everyone out there who is currently searching for answers. I think there's no one answer for everyone, but I think this interview certainly will inspire, even if it's only one or two people out there, it's worth it. And thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome, Raina.